Hello, I'm Esther Gidhu-Ewart. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. The United Nations General Assembly votes to demand a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza as humanitarian organizations warn of a growing crisis. As the climate summit COP28 concludes, we get insight into the release of $100 billion of climate financing for developing countries from the world's topmost polluting economies. And in our technology report, a need to connect Rwandans to the social media giant Wikipedia inspires a movement of young people dubbed Wikimedia Community Rwanda. Pondiho speaks to the team lead, Dahiro Derek. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. Israel announced its worst combat losses for more than a month on Wednesday after an ambush in the ruins of Gaza City. Israel reported 10 of its soldiers killed in the past 24 hours, including a full colonel commanding a forward base and a lieutenant colonel commanding a regiment. It was the worst one-day loss since 15 were killed on October 31st. Intense fighting was underway simultaneously in the north and south of the enclave, a day after the United Nations demanded an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. U.S. President Joe Biden said Israel's indiscriminate bombing of civilians was costing international support. Warplanes again bombed the length of Gaza, and aid officials said the arrival of rainy winter weather worsened the conditions for hundreds of thousands of families sleeping rough in makeshift tents. The vast majority of Gaza's 2.3 million people have already been made homeless. Since a week-long truce collapsed at the start of December, Israeli forces have extended their ground campaign from the northern Gaza Strip into the south with the storming of the main southern city of Khan Yunis. Humanitarian organizations in Gaza are warning of a growing crisis. There is a lack of hygiene leading to diarrhea and respiratory illnesses among tens of thousands of children. Israel says it is doing whatever it can to let more humanitarian aid into Gaza and to minimize civilian casualties. Linda Gradstein reports from Jerusalem.
The humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip is growing increasingly dire, according to aid organizations working there. They say they have stopped much of their aid distribution efforts in southern Gaza because Israeli airstrikes and ground operations aimed at Hamas make it too dangerous.
The severe restrictions on aid access and delivery have only aggravated the situation, leading to starvation among Gaza's population and intensifying an already dire humanitarian crisis. Critical shortages of food, water, electricity, and fuel persist. In overcrowded shelters, scarcity of these items heightens health risks.
Medical professionals say the healthcare system is collapsing, and there are concerns about disease spreading, especially among an estimated 1 million children.
Hundreds of children lining up for a single toilet in the south. Our teams are telling us of maggots being picked from wounds and children undergoing amputations without anesthetic. More than 1 million children, practically all of the child population of Gaza, is left with nowhere to go as ground operations continue to expand in the south.
Israeli officials say they are doing whatever they can to allow humanitarian aid to reach those who need it. They are opening another terminal at the Kerem Shalom border crossing to speed up the Israeli inspections of the aid, which is done to prevent weapons smuggling.
In Nitzana, we expanded the capabilities, the inspections, and we accelerated the process. Today, we can inspect up to 250 trucks every day in Nitzana. And as I said, the problem is not Nitzana. The problem is the capability of the UN agencies to collect all the international assistance that, after we are checking it, goes to Rafah.
More than 18,000 Palestinians have been killed in the fighting and almost 50,000 wounded, according to the Hamas-controlled Palestinian Health Authority in Gaza. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has repeatedly called for a ceasefire.
Expect public order to completely break down soon. And an even worse situation could unfold, including epidemic diseases and increased pressure for mass displacement into Egypt.
Egypt is said to be reinforcing the wall it built on its border with Gaza. It has warned Israel and the international community that it will not accept any Palestinian refugees, leaving them to face the winter in a war zone. Linda Gradstein, VOA News, Jerusalem.
In a sign that the United States is getting increasingly concerned over the number of civilian casualties from Israel's military campaign in Gaza, President Joe Biden delivered a public rebuke to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, even as he maintains staunch support for Israel. White House Bureau Chief Patsy Widakuswara has this report.
Another market destroyed in Gaza, this one in the Jabalia refugee camp. The level of civilian casualties is making U.S. President Joe Biden increasingly concerned.
We have made it clear to the Israelis, and they're aware, that the safety of innocent Palestinians is still of great concern. And so the actions they're taking must be consistent with attempting to do everything possible to prevent innocent Palestinian civilians from being hurt, murdered, killed, lost, etc.
Israel is losing international support over its indiscriminate bombings, Biden said during a campaign appearance earlier Tuesday, his sharpest public criticism. According to a White House transcript, he said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu needs to change his coalition and empower the Palestinian Authority to become a partner in the peace process. He singled out Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who opposes a two-state solution. Biden's comments came as 153 countries voted overwhelmingly in support of a UN resolution demanding a ceasefire. 10 countries opposed the measure, while 23 abstained.
Our duty is to try to save the lives who are still alive by having this resolution adopted and by forcing Israel to comply with it, and those who are shielding Israel to comply with the global consensus.
The vote followed a similar UN Security Council resolution Friday that failed due to a U.S. veto, a position that critics say damages Washington's interests beyond the Middle East.
But also where we are arguing, for example, in the United Nations to gain the support of the Global South for our condemnations, our just condemnations of Russia's abhorrent invasion of Ukraine. We are also going to lose votes if we are seen to be hypocritical, if we are seen to be walking away from our values.
General Assembly resolutions are non-binding but carry political weight.
UN officials, the majority of UN member states, are simply looking for every means possible to create a sense of moral pressure on the US to change its posture.
Israel and its supporters say a ceasefire will only benefit Hamas, allowing them to regroup for future attacks on Israel.
It's allowing Hamas to have a legitimacy that it hasn't earned. It's giving trust to terrorist leaders who have proven unequivocally that they are not trustworthy.
Following Hamas' October 7 attacks in Israel that killed at least 1,200, responding strikes by Israel in Gaza have killed more than 18,000 people by Palestinian count in the bloodiest campaign of the decades-long conflict. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
For more on the UN General Assembly's vote to end the Israel-Hamas war, I'm joined live from the UN headquarters in New York by VOA UN correspondent Margaret Bishia. Hello, Margaret.
Hi, Esther.
Now, what's the significance of Tuesday's vote?
Well, it's a big achievement for the Arab and Muslim countries because they got about 80% of the entire UN General Assembly to back this demand, not just a call, but a demand for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire for Gaza. And if you compare it, let's say, to Ukraine, there have been several votes in the last year and a half in the General Assembly supportive of Ukraine after Russia invaded, and the best result they got was 143 countries supporting them. So 153 is a really big result, and the Palestinian ambassador was quite elated about it yesterday. And as Patsy pointed out in her package, it signifies growing international pressure on Israel and the United States as its main backer to wrap up this war. The countries are frustrated and they're nervous. And in this resolution, we saw 10 countries vote against it. That's 4 less than voted against a similar proposal at the end of October for a humanitarian truce. And they were small countries that don't have a lot of international political weight, like Papua New Guinea and Nauru, which is a small island in Micronesia. So the U.S. and Israel don't really have powerful allies right now supporting this. And many countries, including South Africa, spoke about double standards. Again, kind of going back to the Ukraine conflict, South Africa's ambassador said you can't apply the principles of the UN Charter and international law selectively. It has to be done uniformly. So there was sort of an indirect dig at the U.S. there. And we saw half the abstentions on Tuesday than we saw about 6 weeks ago, which means that that was about a difference of 20 countries, and they have taken a position on this war now. And I think in large part it's due to the rising humanitarian situation and the casualties on the Palestinian side. People are very shocked by them. But the bottom line is Israel's ambassador said they will not accept the resolution, and they will continue to fight to defend themselves.
That brings me to the question, Margaret. So what are the next steps the United Nations is going to take after this vote?
Right. Well, the Palestinian envoy said he hoped that the many global voices on the street and in the General Assembly would put pressure on the United States to push Israel to end the war. He hoped that could happen very soon. Israel imposed a full blockade on Gaza when the war started in October. They rolled it back a bit at the end of October, but aid is still very inadequate getting into Gaza to the 2 million people there. And this week, the Security Council, a small delegation went there from the Security Council to Rafah, to the border crossing in Egypt, to see the aid operation there. That was organized by the United Arab Emirates. They're a member of the Security Council, and their term will end at the end of this year, so in a couple of weeks. So they're trying to put through, before they go, a resolution on the aid, on improving aid. It would authorize aid deliveries to Gaza by land, sea, and air, and it would establish a monitoring mechanism overseen by the Secretary General. They said they hope to get that voted on as early as this week.
Margaret, many thanks for your reporting. UN correspondent Margaret Bishia live for us at the UN headquarters in New York. Delegates from nearly 200 countries agreed Wednesday at a UN climate summit in Dubai to transition away from the use of fossil fuels. The agreement came after 2 weeks of negotiations and takes aim at the main drivers of planet-warming greenhouse gas emissions. More than 100 nations had pushed for even stronger language, seeking an explicit phase-out of fossil fuels. The final agreement calls instead for transitioning away from fossil fuels in energy systems in a just, orderly and equitable manner. U.S. climate envoy John Kerry said that while many wanted clearer language on phasing out fossil fuels in the future, the agreement is an important compromise. But critics say the agreement is UN ambitious. VOA's Peter Clottey spoke to Patricia Scotland, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth of Nations, about the summit.
Madam Secretary General, let me get your thoughts, or the Secretariat's thought on releasing or realizing the promised $100 billion in annual climate financing for developing countries from polluting economies.
Well, that was a promise, Peter, that was made in 2009. Everyone has been thirsting for that money and that opportunity. We still haven't got the 100 billion. But we have to get there, and we have to get there quickly. And what I'm hoping is that with that 100 billion, and in relation to the pledges that are being made on loss and damage, and the pledges that hopefully will be made on adaptation and the other elements, that people won't just pledge I'm praying that they will pay. And it won't be old, recycled money. It would be new, real money, which can be put into the hands of people who need it. But look at what we did just this year for 5 countries in SADC. Our climate finance advisor was able to make an application on behalf of those 5 countries for water, looking at the Zambezi River, and we managed in less than a year to get $63 million to help those 5 SADC members in order to deliver on water. What if we could do that all across the Commonwealth? We would really then be cooking with solar.
That was Patricia Scotland, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth of Nations, speaking to VOA's Peter Clotty. Polls closed in Egypt's presidential election at 9 p.m. local time on Tuesday, in an election expected to give President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi a sweeping victory and a new 6-year term in the absence of real competition. The election, which began on Sunday, is Sisi's third since taking power after the 2013 overthrow of Egypt's first popularly elected president, Mohamed Morsi. An Islamist, Morsi won the presidency a year after the toppling of long-ruling autocrat Hosni Mubarak in a popular uprising. International monitors have criticized Egypt's human rights record under Sisi's rule, accusing the government of repressing political freedoms during a crackdown in which rights groups say tens of thousands, many from Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood, have been jailed. On Monday, the National Election Authority said turnout on the first 2 days of voting had reached about 45%, surpassing that of last presidential election in 2018, though some expressed surprise at the figure given widespread apathy. Results are expected on December 18th. Still to come in our technology report, a need to connect Rwandans to the social media giant Wikipedia leads to a movement dubbed Wikimedia Community Rwanda. Stay tuned.
This week on Straight Talk Africa, we take a look at the elections in the Democratic Republic of Congo. President Felix Tshisekedi seeks a second term on December 20th as he faces both old and new political rivals. His term has been marred by continuing conflict, high unemployment, and widespread corruption. What is at stake in the DRC elections? Join me for the discussion on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In other news, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's emergency bill reviving his plan to send asylum seekers to Rwanda avoided defeat in Parliament on Tuesday. The measure survived a rebellion by dozens of lawmakers that has laid bare deep divisions within Sunak's party. Sunak's first victory in the House of Commons on policy he has pinned his reputation on came after last-ditch negotiations and fears that some of Sunak's conservative lawmakers would help defeat the bill because it was not tough enough. One of the main opposition candidates for Congo's presidential election next week, Moise Katumbi, suspended part of his campaign on Wednesday after a violent clash at one of the election rallies. Live rounds were fired and several people were injured as Katumbi addressed supporters in the coastal town of Moanda on Tuesday, marking an escalation in the tension ahead of the December 20th vote. And Kenya's health ministry has rolled out a digital health information system to help workers diagnose patients and store their health records. Mohamed Yusuf reports from a village in western Kenya where hospitals have recorded an increase in people seeking medical assistance since the deployment of the system.
Learners at Lintipe Secondary School in central Malawi are among thousands in 9 schools across the country, selected as the first beneficiaries of a 5-year project to help students learn the latest digital technology. Here, the children feel transformed just 3 months into the project.
At first, I didn't know how to use a gadget, but now I am now able to use the gadget. Even our teacher can teach us how to make things. We cannot agree that it is true because we don't know how to make it. But when we see it using the gadgets, we are able and truly understand the meaning of making things.
Government statistics show that 4% of 15 to 24-year-olds in Malawi have skills in information and communication technologies. This is largely because of the high cost of buying internet data and lack of access to resources for digital education. So partners in the Connect a School project, the Malawi government, UNICEF, and the mobile phone network provider, Airtel Malawi, are trying to address that gap by equipping each school with a smart TV, tablets, and free internet connectivity. Nora Chavula Chirwa with Airtel Malawi says the company is providing schools with a free internet access and that the new apps are helping to make up for a lack of resources at some schools.
I mean, where there's a hindrance or an obstacle of not having a physical lab, now the students are able to actually run experiments, run physics experiments using the MyLab app that the Ministry of Education has facilitated that these tablets should have.
MyLab is a visual science lab application developed by students at Nzuzu University in northern Malawi. Some school officials say more tablets are needed for the project.
The total enrollment of the school is 350, around 350 students. But the gadgets, the tablets are only 20, which means one is for the teacher and the 19 are for the students. And now, how effective can we use these gadgets with the students?
Malawi government authorities say they are trying to get more tablets.
Right now, as I'm speaking, there's a procurement process taking place to buy devices to run MyLab in selected schools, and this will be growing.
In the meantime, Mikeka says the government has signed a letter of intent with the International Telecommunications Union, UNICEF, and the GIGA initiative to provide digital resources to over 80,000 public schools in Malawi by 2030. Lamek Masina for VOA News, Dedza District, Malawi.
The need to connect Rwandans to the social media giant Wikipedia has led to a movement of young people dubbed Wikimedia Community Rwanda to empower individuals to contribute to the website in their native language, Kinyarwanda. Our technology reporter Paul Ndiho has more. Paul?
That's right, Esther. Wikimedia Rwanda is an independent team of self-motivated individuals that aims to improve articles on Wikimedia, foundation projects, websites, and promote free open knowledge in Kinyarwanda. To learn more, I spoke with Ndahiro Derek, A.K. Alta, Wikimedia team lead in Kigali, Rwanda, about this initiative.
Thank you so much.
You are one of those young people in Rwanda trying to lead an army of young people in terms of technology. What is it that you do in trying to empower young people across Rwanda?
I lead Wikimedia Rwanda, which is a team that is made up of young people. Yes, we've started also recruiting people who are not in the youth category. But our work rotates around promoting open knowledge in Rwanda, and we target Wikimedia project websites, Wikipedia to be specific, and then Wikicommons and some other websites that used in disseminating knowledge.
How are the people responding, especially when they take, for example, they go on Wikipedia and they put in whatever information and it pops up in Kinyarwanda?
Some people have not really understood that. They're not even aware that there is Kinyarwanda Wikipedia. So some of them that get a chance to land on Kinyarwanda Wikipedia, they get so surprised. And then they again come up with the question, who are these people behind Kinyarwanda Wikipedia? Because most people know English Wikipedia. And even me, before joining the Wikimedia movement, I kept thinking maybe the editors are a group of people who are living somewhere in the US or Europe, putting content up. But then in the long run, I got to learn that, yes, if I'm really interested and I'm ready to adhere to the Wikipedia editing rules, I can be one of the editors. So I would say it's really inspiring and promising, because people have started learning, so we have Kinyarwanda Wikipedia.
Let's talk about the tech space in Rwanda. Your president has been on the forefront of trying to empower young people. His government has built an ecosystem that enables young people like you to do your thing. Tell us more.
Well, I think that's very true. The government has been trying to put technology advancement at the core of all the initiatives that are coming up, and putting the youth at the forefront. And we've benefited from that, where we are seeing, one, the internet price has really gone down. That it is, I wouldn't say it is free, but again, it is, we can easily access on a very moderate price that makes it easy for young people. And then we are seeing some initiatives coming. We are trying to do away with using cash in our transport system. That was brought up by, the idea was brought up by a young person. And we are seeing young people coming up with applications that are helping people to pay using, I wouldn't want to say virtual money, but without using the real cash. So so far, that's what's happening, and I'm really glad to see young people benefiting or utilizing this chance that we are getting.
How big is the tech community in Rwanda?
The majority of young people are really either directly engaged or indirectly engaged when it comes to technology.
What's trending when it comes to some of these technologies that are shaping the way things are done in the country?
I would say software development is really trending, because we are seeing so many applications and softwares coming up that are, and I think the ideas are gotten from the existing popular ones. So where young people are now saying, yes, we have different applications and softwares helping the world to be better than it was so many years ago. Then how do we do it? We're having applications like over here in Rwanda that people are using to order food, some others that are used to do transactions. So I would say software development is really at the core.
Where do you see the future of young people like you who are into this space?
The future is really bright, because people are going beyond saying I have a smartphone, but what do I use this smartphone to do to create impact on a personal basis, but also on a community basis? So I think the future is bright. And then what keeps us moving? I think, first of all, the history of our country, the situation in countries around us, and then the entire global, I would say, development. You're seeing countries.
And we'll see you back to